We have come on this day to pay tribute to Captain Kojo Chikata. In so doing, we are guided by Oliver Cromwell's often quoted directions to his artist Peter Lely. Cromwell said to him, "Please portray me as I truly am, without concealing blemishes." The phrase "what and all" has come to mean, as Cromwell had directed, to include all facts in the story of a man, usually a great man. Captain Kojo Chikata was born on the 4th of May 1936. He died at 85 years last Saturday, the 19th of November 2021. So, who was Captain Chikata?
General, salute!
Chikata was a military officer. Beginning his career after his training in the United Kingdom, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in or about 1957. He was posted to the then prestigious armored regiment known as Reki in Accra. He later joined the intelligence services. Chikata fought hard in the famous Nkrumah Wars of the Congo, but was released from the Ghana Army after he returned from the war, cutting short his military career at the ripe rank of captain. In that regard, Kojo Chikata and J.J. Rawlings had something in common, for both of them were released from the army at the same rank of captain. Like J.J. Rawlings, Captain Chikata's foray into national politics began with an attempt to illegally overthrow the government of Kutu Acheampong through a coup d'etat. The episode is captured by Dr. Bafo Agyeman-Duah on pages 70 and 71 of his recent book entitled General Acheampong, The Life and Times of Ghana's Head of State. Referring to the year 1976, Dr. Bafo writes, quote, "Later the same year, in June, a military tribunal will try and convict Captains Kojo Chikata and Gustav Banini and others for subversion," unquote. So that was how the name Captain Chikata was first heard in national life. It was about a coup d'etat and a military mutiny at the national level. Incidentally, the head of state, Kutu Acheampong, who had power to direct on the executions of such mutineers, including Chikata, was supremely magnanimous. His colleagues had put enormous pressure on him to allow the executions of such mutineers as Kojo Chikata. But he, Kutu Acheampong, consulting his spiritual father, wrote to the spiritual father as published on page 72 of Dr. Bafo's book as follows. The letter, written out of the office of the chairman of the Supreme Military Council, the Castle, Osu, Accra, dated 9th December 1977, reads, "Dear Brother Simeon, your letter dated the 11th of November 1977 is hereby acknowledged. This letter is coming your way with joy and a prayer that you and your loved ones are all in good health and in harmony." How well I recall the night before your departure from Accra on the 25th of June 1977. You may rest assured that as head of state of Ghana, sometime in the future during my administration with God's grace, I intend to set the men who have tried to assassinate me free, that they may breathe the fresh air and once more they may walk with dignity. May it also be the will of God and my faith that those same men become useful Ghanaians and not to tear the country down, but to help build it. For hate destroys and love builds. With love, yours sincerely, signed General I.K. Acheampong, Head of State and Chairman of the Supreme Military Council. Ironically, whilst the magnanimity of Kutu Acheampong had saved the life of Captain Kojo Chikata, it had been brutally alleged by Captain Ba Acheampong speaking before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that elements among the AFRC, notably certain tribalists, had wanted Acheampong dead.
But my information is that there were other parochial motives for the general's execution. A cabal of tribalists who have come to be known as the Jelukofe Mafia wanted General Acheampong dead.
So, that was Kojo Chikata and the episode of the 1970s. Captain Kojo Chikata returned to national news when, upon the successful overthrow of the civilian government in 1981, Flight Lieutenant Rawlins, the leader of the coup d'etat, announced that Captain Tsikata was going to be a key member of the PNDC regime. Captain Chikata was responsible for national security and to keep the regime on the left side of politics, for he it was who had made great friends with Fidel Castro, the NPLA in Angola, Hugo Chavez, as well as Yasser Arafat and Colonel Gaddafi, to name but a few socialist communists of the day. Writing on page 323 of his book, The Political History of Ghana, Dr. Obed Asamoah attributed the sustenance of the PNDC regime to the work of Captain Chikata. Under the subtitle, Attempts at Counter-Revolution, Obed Asamoah writes as follows: a military takeover always has a demonstrative effect. It dislodges people from power, and they will always find means to regain it. Good security coupled with eternal vigilance is necessary to maintain power. In that regard, Captain Kojo Chikata was a welcome gift. As the security chief, he did a perfect job to keep the PNDC in power until the return of constitutional rule in 1993. Unquote. Undoubtedly, the most barbaric and violent elimination of human beings in the history of Ghana occurred on June 30th, 1982, which is now famously commemorated as Martyrs' Day every year, was the darkest day in Ghana's political, legal, and military history. It was the day that 3 learned High Court judges, including a pregnant woman, were abducted from their homes in the early evening, driven away to a military base outside Accra, and dastardly murdered. Their charred bodies were later found by ordinary citizens. The event shook the nation. J.J. Rawlins was the head of state, and Captain Chikata was the national security boss. J.J. addressed the nation and promised to establish a full inquiry into the matter. He set up a Special Investigation Board, SIB. The SIB was chaired by former Chief Justice, the most learned Justice Azukrab. Here is Kevin Shillington writing on page 92 of his book, Ghana and the Rawlins Factor. A Special Investigations Board was set up on the 15th of July to investigate the killings. By then, rumors had already begun to circulate which alleged that members of the PNDC itself were involved in the crime, and that the killing of these particular judges, who had overturned the rulings of the previous AFRC regime, was in fact welcomed by the PNDC government, if not actually committed at its own instigation. Rumors got to such a pitch that a week later, J.J. Rawlins himself was driven to protest publicly his own innocence and that of other members of the PNDC. He pointed out that such a deed was totally against the interests of the government, particularly at a time when it badly needed to regain public credibility. The fact that the rumors had gained such a hold, however, was an indication of the extent to which the PNDC was losing the confidence of some articulate sections of the community in this matter. What made matters worse was that the rumors were not entirely without foundation. Over the next 5 months, the Special Investigations Board gradually unraveled the sordid details of the plot. A lance corporal and 3 colleagues confessed to the killings, but the most significant of all is that it emerged that the whole thing had been organized by Joachim Amatekui, a member of the PNDC until his resignation in August 1982. Amatekui made his first sworn testimony to the SIB in October 1982. Finally, in November, in what in retrospect can be seen as an attempt to blackmail the PNDC into saving him from the firing squad, Amatekui tried to implicate Captain Kojo Chikata, Special Security Advisor to the PNDC and a close colleague of J.J. Rawlins. Although the chairman of the Special Investigations Board, Justice Azukrab, accepted his latest allegation and recommended Captain Kojo Chikata's arrest and prosecution, the Attorney General decided otherwise. So, as it turned out, the testimony of Joachim Amatekui that Captain Chikata had masterminded the murder was sustained by the former CJ, who recommended the prosecution of the captain among others. The Attorney General had the power to make the decision, and Justice Akins, the Attorney General of the day, decided to exclude Captain Chikata from the prosecution. Eventually, Amatekui and others were prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced to death by the firing squad. Then came the most dramatic of all events surrounding the murder of the 3 High Court judges. Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, the PNDC chairman, extracted a confession statement and an apology from Amatekui just before Amatekui, was due to be executed. The episode is captured in Kojo Yankah's book entitled My Motherland, My Life. On Thursday, 18th August 1983, Amatekui was executed. On the afternoon of the day after the execution, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings invited editors of the mainstream media and selected foreign media representatives to a press briefing at the Ministry of Information, with the Minister, Joyce Aye, present. Subject matter was a playback of a confession Jerry Rawlings had recorded from an unusual pre-execution interview with Amatekui, in which Kwe had said in part, quote, "Tell Captain Tsikata to forgive me. He knew nothing about the murder of the judges and the retired army officer. Please give all my entitlements to my children," unquote. Shock rang through the room. Eyes were exchanged by editors. Shocking for various reasons. Why did Rawlings choose to interview Amatekui? Was this an opportunity for Amatekui to now tell the world that he was influenced wrongly to drag the name of Captain Tsikata into the statements to the court about the murder? And why play back this chilling revelation to media personnel? For me as a newsman, this was very newsworthy. My editorial board at The Graphic agreed with me to carry the story. The Graphic front page headline the following morning, 22nd August 1983, was, quote, "Amatekui's last words," unquote. The edition sold very fast on the newsstands. I noticed, to my surprise, that the editor of the Ghanaian Times, the sister newspaper, did not carry the story. Neither did the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. We at The Graphic could have done a second edition on the story. But the dramatic nature of this story continues in Kojo Yankah's book. He, as editor of The Graphic, lost his job. He captures this on page 46 of his book entitled Suspension from The Graphic as follows. "It was a pleasure to receive the Minister of Information, Ms. Joyce Aye, in my office later that morning. She handed me a letter from her office. I was to proceed on indefinite suspension for gross indiscretion and bad taste in publishing and thereby reducing to the level of cheap journalistic scoop the last words of a penitent man. She told me that the chairman, being J.J. Rawlings, was not happy with my insensitive front page story and hence the letter. She also told me that it was an unpleasant task for her to perform, and I understood her position. No amount of professional explanation would make a difference. As soon as Joyce Aye left, I called my editorial team and informed them accordingly. I saw the sadness and sympathy on their faces. The following morning, I read the editorial column of the Ghanaian Times and found part of the reason stated in my suspension letter. Quote, "The Graphic's insensitive front page scoop had made the head of state's talk look like a device to vindicate the regime, when Rawlings's real concern was that even if his comrade had lied in his attempt to save himself, he could at least die with the truth on his lips," unquote. I was convinced that I had done the right thing. Subsequently, Kojo Yankah, the now dismissed editor of The Graphic, was offered 2 separate jobs by the Minister for Information. According to the story, Kojo turned both jobs down, and then this happened, recorded on page 47 of Kojo Yankah's book entitled Director, Ghana Institute of Journalism. It's as follows. Early January 1984, I was invited to the office of Captain Kojo Chikata, advisor to the head of state at the castle in Osu. Since I was not responding positively to any of the earlier proposals, a decision had been made to transfer me to the Ghana Institute of Journalism as director. I expressed my disagreement with it because my friend Cabral Ameher is the head of the institution. The response was that Cabral is currently on a course in Europe and is being transferred to the Ministry of Information on his return. I reluctantly accepted the position on condition that this will be conveyed in an appropriate appointment letter. I received my appointment letter 3 days later and I reported to the Ghana Institute of Journalism. So to summarize the dramatic events involving the confession of Amatekui, Amatekui's confession was recorded by Flight Lieutenant Rawlings. The pivotal point of the confession was to demonstrate the innocence of Captain Chikata, contrary to what Amatekui himself had told the SIB. Flight Lieutenant Rawlings wanted key media to know about this confession. Kojo Yankah, the editor of The Graphic, decided that all Ghanaians should know about it, so he published it on the front page of The Graphic. Kojo Yankah got dismissed. He was offered 2 other jobs by his boss, the Minister of Information. But then, later on, The subject matter of the confession, Captain Kojo Chikata invited Kojo Yankah to his office and gave him a new job as Director General of the Ghana Institute of Journalism. So, that was the dramatic state of affairs about Captain Chikata and the gruesome murder of the 3 High Court judges and the retired army officer. The other matter, about which little has been said, is that even though 4 persons were convicted and sentenced to death by firing squad, one of them, Lance Corporal Amatekui, had been on the run until this day. He, Amatekui, was never executed. It is believed that he is abroad. However, in 2002, Captain Tsikata himself took the stage at the National Reconciliation Commission set up by the then Attorney General Nana Danko Akufo-Addo under the auspices of President J.A. Kufuor. Captain Tsikata told the commission that the decision of the SIB to accept the testimony of Amatekui against him was born out of a conspiracy to undo him and to undo the PNDC regime.
For the past 20 years, I have been living under the pain of having these allegations made against me year in, year out, until today. And I have done my best this morning to demonstrate to this commission why I believe that the ICIB, after they issued their initial report on the 6th of November, began a political conspiracy against me. I can't precisely say why, but I believe because of the actions that they took and the circumstances of the time, that they were determined to have me removed from my position in the government, to discredit me and thereby discredit the government and prepare for the overthrow of the government. I have named the people who I believe took part in this conspiracy. Members of the board: Justice Azukrab, Mr. Lindsay, Reverend Dovlo, Jobo, Reverend Jobo, Mr. Quiz is now dead, and Mr. Amui. Those who helped them were, of course, some members of the police group attached to them, Idana and Odo, who took that famous statement, which the ICIB refers to as the historic statement of 23rd November 1982. And of course, Brigadier Nunu Mensah. For the reasons that I have given you regarding the circumstances under which he knew beforehand what Amatekui was going to say in his statement of 23rd November. Mr. Chairman, I said that for 20 years I've been living under the pain of this monstrous allegation that I participated in this crime. I'm just pleading to you, members of this commission, to make available here the persons that I have named so that I can look them in the eye and ask them certain questions about how they came to engage themselves in such an elaborate frame-up which nearly cost my life. After all, this commission has given its platform to an international con man, Mr. Krisasha, who came here, raved and ranted for 2 hours, making all sorts of allegations against me, And I'm just pleading to give some opportunity for me also to question these people. After all, former Chief Justice of Ghana, a priest, Jobo, former head of CID, to ask them why they took part in such a conspiracy to frame me up.
All of the drama of 1982 and 83 said, it is important to observe that Captain Chikata's period as National Security Capo of the PNDC recorded the highest number of missing persons, extrajudicial killings, and many exiled Ghanaian professionals out of the country. A lot more explanation may be required on these matters of the missing people and the extrajudicial killings. But alas, the captain is dead and gone. For now, we guess and we move on. It is necessary to observe that Captain Chikata had a bright political spot. He was certainly part of those who convinced the PNDC to allow a constitutional change. He, Captain Chikata, participated in that process. Here he is, submitting his mysterious self to the democratic process by casting his ballot in 1992. Later on, Captain was pushed out of the NDC government in 1996. Rumors were rife that Captain had gotten on the wrong side of Nana Kunedu Ajiman Rawlings, and elements around Mrs. Rawlings had pushed Captain Chikata out of the government and out of favor with JJ. Dr. Obeda Samoa appears to have settled the matter of Captain's exit from the NDC government in 1996 on page 323 of his book as follows. Thankfully, he, Captain Chikata, stayed on in government until 1996, when the intrigue of some elements contributed to his departure. Intrigue for or against a cause is common in politics. Hence, apart from the case of Captain Chikata, intrigue by some elements of the NDC contributed to Professor Mills being endorsed by President Rawlings as his successor, my temporary departure from the NDC in 2006, and incredibly, the marginalization of President Rawlings himself in recent times. Significantly, President Rawlings, Captain Chikata, and I are from the Volta region and were promoters of the National Democratic Congress, a party whose formation, ironically, some of these forces of intrigue initially opposed. Thus, they have been able to achieve a significant shift of power, which they, in turn, are losing to others." Unquote. Captain Kojo Chikata is said to have returned to NDC politics briefly to help Professor J.E.A. Mills win the 2008 elections. He it was who is said to have been responsible for the appointment of Dr. Kwabena Dufour as Minister of Finance under Mills. Writing a tribute to the captain, Dr. Dufour called him his mentor. Captain Chikata was mentioned again at the highest level of national politics when President Akufo-Addo mentioned him among eminent men who had advised him in the period before he won that landslide victory against NDC's John Dramani Mahama during the elections of 2016.
To the senior citizens of our country who have given me invaluable advice over the years, amongst them the former President of the Republic, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Kofi Annan, Otumfuo Osei Tutu II, Asante-Hene, the former Chief of Defense Staff, General J.B. Dankwa, the Chairman of the NPP's National Council of Elders, the veteran statesman C.K. Tebem, and Captain Kojo Chikata, erstwhile PNDC member responsible for national security. I thank you for your counsel and for sharing your wisdom with me, and hope I can continue to count on you during the challenging period ahead of me.
Captain Kojo Chikata may be seen by some as a terrible nightmare to arrive at the top echelons of Ghanaian political life. To such people, it's a rest in peace but never again. To others, he's a hero, a mentor, the ultimate security couple. History and posterity will judge. Posterity will also cast a verdict. Good luck to Captain Tsikata when the day arrives for posterity's verdict. For now, here is our general salute to the fallen Recce man. And what shall we say? Rest in peace, Captain Chikata. Achimota School have lost another gem.
From Kampala to Accra, from Riyadh to Quito, we are brothers and our mother is a school. She will guide us all in each, so to learn that we may teach, so to subjugate ourselves that we may rule. Play the game, shout her name, spread her fame afar. She's the head of all the hosts, she's the school of whom we boast, she's the glory of the coast, Achimota. When our books are laid aside and we scatter far and wide, we remember with affection all we gained, how we learned to take our share in the life and labor there, where the men of whom we're proud and so were trained. Play the game, shout her name, spread her fame afar. She's the head of all the hosts, she's the school of whom we boast, she's the glory of the coast, Achimota. Play the game, shout her name, spread her fame afar. She's the head of all the hosts, she's the school of whom we boast, she's the glory of